how to reach 10,000, but we raised the number. How to reach 100,000 voters in Greater Cincinnati is our focus. And we honor that everybody is, I heard it this morning, we are in the United States of anxiety on all different levels. That's where we live. And without going into all the details with this, I do want to say that of the anxiety and the health issues and the economic issues, that I hope you and your family and loved ones are in good health and feeling safe as best we can. One of the guidelines for me in organizing this is the question, what can I do to help? That's my basic question as an organizer. What can I do to help? And this is one step in that direction. Being just a consumer, a reader, a TV watcher, a social media person, for me is not enough. It's fine, it's good, but it's not nearly enough. And I want more power. And I'm encouraging all of us to think of that too. Power meaning to influence or to change, to take action, to win over voters, to win over politicians who make the policies, and always looking for the common good or the values. Our training today is an experiment, how to quickly reach 100,000 voters in Greater Cincinnati and to do it inexpensively. I looked up the population of Hamilton County, and there's over 800,000 people in the county. And of course, if you think of Greater Cincinnati, it's of course a lot more. We're trying to reach 100,000 of that 800,000, which is about 1/8 approximately. 1 out of 8 we're trying to reach with this experiment. And to also, to my view, is out of that 100,000 that we reach, to motivate 1% of those who would take action. This, it's like being at a festival. Bold New Democracy was at the Pride Festival and at the Women's March Festival, and I think others too. And being there at the booth and people walk by. If we could get 1 out of 100, picture the people going by the booth there. If 1 out of 100 would somehow get engaged, would somehow link in or come to meetings or take some actions that we guide them to, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 100 is 1%, but 1% of 100,000 is 1,000. So my view is if we reach 100,000, I want 1% of that 100,000 to get involved, to vote for the candidate that we believe in, or to get themselves, if they haven't voted yet, to get themselves registered, to take some action. Will they vote before April 28th? Will they hear the story of Charmaine McGuffey for sheriff and decide to vote for her and perhaps even to help the campaign in some way? If we reach, out of the 100,000 we reach, if we get 1% that would follow through, that means 1,000 people. Well, perhaps they'll link in to work with Bold New Democracy or other activist groups. I believe some citizens are waiting, yearning perhaps, to help the community in some way. They'll feel better. They know they've got to help in some way. And this is a reach out to invite them, because a lot of people help when they're invited. So this happened when I was thinking about some training. We talked about it in our Bold New Democracy group, and more trainings. And my thinking was David Akadjian, his book out. He's an active member with Bold New Democracy. He has a great book out, One Action. If you think of the consumer part, the learning part, the Little Book of Revolution, a distributive strategy for democracy. It's a great title, The Little Book of Revolution, a distributive strategy for democracy is the name of David's book, and he's a senior writer for Daily Kos. So I reached out, we talked, well, would you provide some training for us, perhaps based on your book, David, or whatever is your cutting edge? And we know that from his involvement with Bold New Democracy. We bounced the ideas around, and then he said, ooh, this is an interesting one for him, the experiment to reach out to a large number of people. He told me about the Boldly Bankrupt a project that he was working with Noemi on from UC, and he did some of this. So as soon as I heard this, I thought, this is it. We got to reach people quickly now in these times, and with the election less than a month away, or the completion of the primary election less than a month away. So that's how it got started. We started getting excited, David and I, and therefore this training was born. And here we are, and with great gratitude, David, I hand it to you. Thank you for your involvement and for your leadership with this. And we're eager, all of us, I'm sure, are eager to learn.
Okay. Thank you very much, Richard. So can you hear me okay, Richard?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming, are you seeing the presentation come up as well?
I see how to reach the 10,000 people slide.
That is it. That is it. Okay. Excellent. So, yeah, just real quickly, appreciate the introduction, and sorry, folks, for the technical issues. Appreciate you bearing with us. What I want to cover today really quickly is I want to talk a little bit about something called content marketing and what it is, if you haven't heard the term. My guess is that you know what it is, you just haven't heard it called this before. And then I want to talk about an example that I ran, a Facebook social media example that I ran, promoting a piece of content marketing that I did for Boldly Bankrupt. Then I want to get to how we can use this to run a campaign for Charmaine, and what everybody can do to help. We should get through this quickly, so I'm hoping there's time for Q&A at the end. If you have any questions throughout, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. Matt's going to gather them, and we can ask them at the end. This is a broadcast, so we won't be able to hear you. It's only the panelists who can speak to the group. We partly did that because it's easier for the recording. So that said, what is content marketing? So content marketing, this is a 1982 example of content marketing that I happened to buy this in 1982, this comic book that came out. And the idea behind this was really Kenner wanted a backstory for their action figures. They're going to make all the money in the action figures. So they came out with this, G.I. Joe comic book. This is issue number 1. And it had this story behind the G.I. Joe dolls, which hadn't really been popular. They'd been popular earlier in the 70s, and then they'd kind of gone away for a while. But Kenner was looking to bring them back, and so they teamed up with Marvel to come out with this comic book. So, believe it or not, so within 2 issues of this release, after 2 issues, 20% of their target audience, boys 5 to 12, had 2 or more G.I. Joe action figure toys. I mean, it's really powerful stuff. Like if you do it right. The official definition of this looks more like this. This is from the content marketing issue. It's a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. Oh boy, there's a lot of buzzwords in there. I have trouble even understanding what that means, but what it comes down to is typically you're giving somebody some content for free, and you're linking that to some type of action. And I'll talk through a couple examples that make this more clear. So this is typical advertising. So in typical advertising, what happens? Well, you have a product, your vacuum cleaner, and then you're talking about a bunch of different features that it has. So it has a bag that hardly ever needs cleaning. It has 1,000 watts of suction, whatever. They're going to try to pump it up as much as they can at a typical advertisement. Content advertising, this is a very early example, much earlier than G.I. Joe. So this is Poor Richard's Almanac. This is Ben Franklin. Um, you might not guess what Ben Franklin was advertising for. And any of the panelists know what his business was?
No.
He was a printer.
Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. All right. Thank you, Matt. Yeah. So Ben was a printer. That was what he was advertising for. So he wanted to drive business to his printing business. And what did he do? He published this almanac that had all of this valuable information for farmers and lots of entertaining little, stories, etc., biblical anecdotes. And it was hugely popular and hugely effective. And it drove tremendous business to his printing business. So why this tends to be more effective than traditional advertising, especially these days, is that people don't like advertising. They really don't like being advertised to. There's, especially this day and age, and part of the reason for it is, it's everywhere. We just see it all over the place, and we don't like that feeling that we're being sold to necessarily. So with content advertising, like content by comparison, it's helpful, it's interesting, it's free, it often tells you something you didn't know before, or it's entertaining, and it's not talking about the product really. So there's really it's not at first, so it doesn't feel like advertising. So how does this relate to politics? Well, in some sense, you can consider the news as content advertising, just the news in general, all news. And the reason I say this is because news does not make newspapers money. That's not what's making them the money. It costs them money to cover the news. What makes them money is the advertising, the subscriptions, et cetera, et cetera. And the models are even changing more today, as we've seen with the internet. So we're seeing very different business models these days. But in a sense, all political writing of some kind is content advertising. It's being used. You're trying to attract an audience, and whether it's TV or news. So this is me at Daily Kos. I'm a writer there, and here was one of the an article that I wrote for them. And what I'm doing is I'm driving traffic to their site, and they're using this they do some advertising there. Part of how they make money. They also do a lot of their reason for doing this is fundraising. Fundraising for issues and fundraising for candidates. But the entire site is based around content, and the content is what drives people to the site. So in this kind of content marketing model, there are basically three things that you're doing. One is creating the content, writing the article, putting together Poor Richard's Almanac, coming up with G.I. Joe #1, a Star Wars movie, that's really going to be used that's going to sell more action figures than it does in revenues by itself. The second part is looking to promote the content. So you get the information out there, and you can advertise it, share it. That's something you can do on social media with articles. And a lot of times, often what you're doing in that step is you'll see a lot of times people asking for things like an email address because they want your contact info. One of the most valuable things Daily Kos actually has is their email address. Candidates and campaigns come to them all the time because they have one of the biggest political email addresses lists and they can use that then to to push content out to their. They do a daily newsletter that they send out to folks, and then what they're looking to do, the idea at the end is some type of conversion. Now, in the selling world, the conversion is the action is you want people to buy a product of some kind, typically. In the political world, it's often an action. It's an action that you want people to take. So, for example, vote for Charmaine McGuffey. Like that is a desired action that you want at the end of this. So, real briefly, that's just that's the content marketing model in a nutshell. So, let's look at an example of, and this is related to the Bankrupt project at UC. Noemi, are you out there?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So real quickly, who all was involved with the Boldly Bankrupt project at UC?
I'm Noemi. I'm a political science student at the University of Cincinnati, and at the university we formed kind of an activist coalition. So that's a coalition of several progressive student groups on campus. I'm a member of the Young Democratic Socialists of America, and Fossil Free UC, which focuses on divestment from fossil fuels. There's also several other groups involved, like Sustainable Fashion Institute, and also the Roosevelt Institute, which focuses on research. And so we basically, the four groups came together, formed this activist coalition, and we created a website called boldlybankrupt.com that focused on exposing financialization and poor financial decisions that you see that are made, at the highest administrative levels. And basically, we created this website to spread awareness and to reach a lot of the student body and the faculty and let them know about what was actually going on at our university, because a lot of people had no idea how poorly our money was being spent and what it was being spent on. So.
Awesome. No, fantastic introduction. Excellent. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, so we'll come back to Boldly Bankrupt in a second. And working with, I reached out to Noemi because I had seen the site, and I thought to myself, wow, this is a great story here. Like, this should get more, I was interested in promoting it because it touched an issue close to me. I'm a UC alumni, and and I just didn't like what was going on. So I thought, okay, this would I think the readers at Daily Coast would be very interested in this as well, because it also applies to other colleges out there. But so as I'm thinking about, articles and ideas for articles at Daily Coast, like, what's always going through my mind is what's going to interest them. What will drive them to the site? What will they come read? What will they find valuable? What will they think is useful? And, really, when it comes down to it, will they share it? Will they share it with others? Because when they share it with others, you get massive multiplier effects from, in terms of content being out there. And it's all free. Because nobody has to pay for that. It's people sharing things with each other. So what interests people at Daily Coast most, this is a quick list. Personal stories are always really of interest. Any kind of new take on current events or different perspectives you can provide. I write a lot of what I call explainer articles, where I'm explaining an economic issue and breaking it down for somebody. I've also done humor. A lot of, something they haven't seen before. It's a very, very smart academic audience that's very politically involved, and they do not like advertising. They hate advertising. If they think something is advertising to them, they will get mad, and you can tell because they will comment on it. But if you're explaining something or talking through an issue or, talking to an expert about something, they love that kind of stuff. And thing to mention is good titles are something that really crucial to have a good lead, is what they call it. And that tends to, you want people to know exactly what is going to be in that content from the title. You don't want them to have to dig. They should know right from the title. And if they don't, then you haven't done a good job of writing the title. So in the newspaper business, they call this "don't bury the lead." And this was an example of this. This was the most popular one that I ever wrote. The title that got out there the most, it was called 15 Things Everyone Would Know If There Were a Liberal Media. And it was just a list of all the stuff that everybody should know, but it's not out there. And the whole point was that this idea we have our liberal media is just ridiculous. But this article was seen by easily over 1 million people. I had John Fugelsang from formerly America's Funniest Videos. He was the host of America's Funniest Videos. And now he does a radio show out of New York that's political. He contacted me about this article. And again, it was all the title. It was the title. And I also mentioned, just a quick note, lead is actually the correct spelling, L-E-D-E. It's a newspaper term. And I just say that because a lot of people always say, oh, but you spelled it wrong. It should be L-E-A-D. But it actually is the lead. And the two newspaper lines you'll hear sometimes are "don't bury the lead," or another famous one from the newspaper business is "if it bleeds, it leads," which basically means if it's a car crash, they will put it on they want that to lead. So a couple other titles just to give you some examples. 13 Ways It Costs More to Be Poor was, I took that from somebody's Twitter and ended up using that. They had this great feed that it was just a list of everybody kind of talking about how it costs more to be, to be poor. And this was shared a ton of times because people think that it's, they don't understand often that it really does cost more if you're, like, everything costs more if you don't have money. I did one about Venezuela because that's a common conservative meme. People are always like, but Venezuela, but Venezuela. And I'm like, come on, it's a joke. If you really want to know what the future of our country's like, look at Chile. Or a couple others, just as an example. 21 Area Christmas cards, one of the few funny ones that I'd written. One Christmas, I thought I started making these up for fun, and somehow I came up with 21 of them. And the idea was to take Ayn Rand sayings and put them on typical Christmas cards, because you just realize just what a horrible person like Ayn Rand is. Everything, like all her quotes are just awful and evil. And so the idea of putting them on Christmas cards, like, people thought that was hilarious. This was an article done in 2014. Daily Kos still runs it every Christmas. Like, they put this out there, just because it's funny. So anyway, so back to Boldly Bankrupt, because Noemi, I know you have to go soon. So here's the Boldly Bankrupt page. We talked about on boldlybankrupt.com, the link to it. Did you know when you were putting this together that you were doing content marketing?
Well, now that you mention it, I guess we were, but I just didn't know the terms for it. So.
Yeah. Most people don't. You don't think of, like, newspapers as content marketing, and it doesn't really. It's just because. We're used to newspapers, and we're not as much, the content marketing term comes more from internet folks, and people tend to associate it with social media more than they do with Ben Franklin, but it's really the same thing. So I wanted to ask you, so the 3 steps of content marketing, producing, sharing, and kind of converting. so people can visit the site. They can see what you produced. In terms of sharing, I know you had a coalition of folks. Like, what did you guys do to share this and get this out there?
Yeah, so at first we were really trying and limiting it to people on campus, obviously, because these are the people that are most affected by it. So we started by doing a lot of flyering around campus. So doing kind of catchy slogans like, did you know Arts and Sciences has a $0 budget? And then linking to a QR code of the website so people could just scan it with their phones and access it. We wanted to take the most, outrageous facts that were on the website and put it on these flyers just so people, stopped in their tracks and thought, wow, does Arts and Sciences really have a budget of $0? I want to find out more and kind of access it. But then after that, we kind of started thinking about, we really want to reach a lot more people, in the greater Cincinnati community. So that's when we kind of started to try and get as many articles written as possible. We got published in our school newspaper, the News Record, and then in the Inquirer, and then obviously with you, David, at the Daily Cause. So we were trying then to reach out further, because obviously if someone gets sent just a link, boldlybankrupt.com, they don't know who created it, like, is it trustworthy? So we were trying to go through reputable news sources to get people to access our website and kind of get a little bit of a picture of what was going on before they even click the link. So
that is awesome. I love the idea to post up around campus, and drive awareness. Yeah, because I didn't know about some of those numbers till you posted them, and again, it was part of why I thought, oh, this is a story that should get out there. This is a great content. So in content marketing, most of the time is spent on the content. It tends to be the thing that takes the longest. I haven't even gotten to social media yet, but I didn't want to mention really quickly. So here real quickly, this is the article that I wrote with Noemi and several folks at Boldly Bankrupt. And it got published on the front page of Daily Coast. So it was out there. It got that national, exposure. And when you're on the front page of Daily Coast, that's like 10,000 views right there, typically, because it's literally is the first thing that pops up when somebody goes to the site, and it's out there for an hour. But so something I hadn't even had a chance to talk with you about, Noemi, because this was just, what I did with the article afterwards was I went around and I shared it to all these Cincinnati groups, because it's an interesting topic to folks in the area. So, I shared it with all my groups, and then I have a little Facebook group, kind of like Bold New Democracy has a Facebook group. I have my little revolution group, but through this group, I'm able to run ads, and so let me switch real quick, and I can show you. I share through share my Google. Okay, is my web browser coming up, Noemi? See it?
yeah, it is. I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So in here, like, once you get your group set up to run political ads, and this is something that we're working with Bold New Democracy on, so they can get their group set up to do this as well, because it's great for all kinds of things. What I can do is I can boost, for small amounts of money, I can boost this content out to different demographics.
Yeah, and you can. I was going to say you can do this on Instagram as well. We also did Instagram ads for our campaign.
Oh, cool. So you did some actual advertising then too. Awesome. Awesome. Very cool. So who I targeted with this, and this was literally just a, I spent $25, to send this out to folks, and for $25, I reached over 3,000 people. which is pretty darn good. Um, and and with this article, the way I can tell that it's the content is really good and my target audience is right is because the engagement level is insane. Okay, so like almost 1,000 engagements out of 3,000 people, like that's a third percentage rate. Like that's crazy. Like that, most content marketing, they're looking at, like 2 to 4% of engagement. Doing the action that you want people to do. But you can see, the other thing I can see, people shared it too, so it got that multiplier effect. That's advertising that I'm not even paying for. I'm reaching those 22 people and all of their audiences for nothing. That's it. When you have good, that's what good content will do for you. It gives you that multiplier effect, and it's very, 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 very powerful. And at any point, again, I can boost it, and I can go into Facebook, and Facebook has. So interestingly enough, just a note on my target audience. So who I was targeting in this was initially, I was trying to reach people within like 20 to 30 miles of Mason, Ohio. So I was targeting Warren County, and it also hits a lot of Hamilton County as well. But I've been doing a lot of ad targeting for Warren County because the suburbs is one of those areas where I think we can expand a lot of knowledge about what's going on. We're seeing a lot of transition in the suburbs now, a lot of people becoming more liberal. So that's kind of one of the things that like one of my personal goals. But just a heck of a lot of people in the area, a lot of UC grads, so that's why, that's why University of Cincinnati, I wanted that in the title, because I want UC people to see that. And I think that's, because I'm hitting my target audience, like that's why I get such good engagement rate on this. It was, and I was also I targeted liberal and moderates with this. So I wasn't trying to push it out to conservatives, but it was people who Facebook identifies. Facebook has a couple categories you can select, to try to target the audience for different messages. And I thought that this was a message, for liberals and moderates and DUC. That was basically my target audience. So for $25, I know I managed to reach more than 3,000 people because, again, you get that multiplier effect from other folks. Sharing as well. Okay, yeah, and I saw Richard was asking me a question about engagement. What is engagement? So engagement on Facebook typically means either people are reacting to it, commenting on it, or clicking the link. And here it kind of shows some of the different types of engagements on Facebook. It means that the people reached, those are people who see the ad. Engagement is kind of that next step of, okay, well, they've actually cared about enough about that ad that they either like it or they click on the link or they go a step farther. So engagement is really, Richard, kind of to your point, when you were saying you hope that like 1% of people get engaged, on this post, it was like basically a third of people got engaged. They took the action, some type of action that I wanted them to take, which, again, that's pretty darn great for driving awareness. I mean, Noemi, you guys just off this like website you built, you have bought, you have managed to bring incredible amounts of attention to this issue. Mm-hmm. I mean, like literally, you've gotten national exposure from this. It's, it's unbelievable. And I don't know if you guys fully, I think you do realize it. But I want to say that because it's a really big deal. It's really impressive. I was super impressed with all the work the news record folks had done on this. I mean, their research, blew me away.
Yeah.
Go
That's
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, something I mean, just I think people recognize that we've done our research, and I think that's why it can reach, such a wide variety of people. And we've had student groups, you see Republicans, you see Libertarians sign on, agree to support our cause. So I think that it's a message that can reach a wide audience because people know it's well researched. We're not, it's not clickbait. When they're going to our website, they're reading, actual facts with supporting evidence behind it. So I think all the hard work we did and, as you said, creating the content and actually spending months and months researching and putting together the website have really paid off. And that's why so many people are, reacting and engaging with this content. So.
Okay. So have you seen, and I see Richard asking the question, he's wondering, I know you were encouraging, you were encouraging folks to contact UC and encouraging folks to, to get involved. What types of actions have you, like results have you kind of seen from this?
Yeah, so we've been trying to do a lot of actions that are focused on especially having like parents and alumni contacting UC and expressing their displeasure because that's kind of where UC gets a lot of its money for, from donations and for their funds and all of that. So if we can reach alumni and parents and have them call in and let President Pinto know that we want more student engagement, more student involvement with the decision-making process at UC, that's the best way to do it. The problem is that a lot of the people that are in charge are appointed by the governor, for example, like the Board of Trustees, or they're very highly paid administrative officials that don't really have any kind of accountability to the student body. They're not really elected. So all that we can do is really call in and then do some kinds of direct action. So sit-ins, protests, things like that, which we will be gearing up. Obviously, with the coronavirus, it's kind of put a damper on a lot of our efforts since everyone is kind of working from home. But kind of having people call in. And then on our website, there's a place to submit your testimonial or your opinion, and we collect all of those email addresses. And we're going to use that to send out further communication about things that we have going on and specific actions we can take. So we also have a section on our website about that. So we're trying to collect as many, as you said, collecting email addresses is super important. So we're trying to collect a lot of those so we have a contact that we can reach out to in the future if we need support or help.
No, that's great. Yeah, and one specific action that I can talk to a little bit because John McNay, the president of the teachers union at UC, like I know him and I talked with him about this article. But he just said, like having this come from the students is so important to their efforts because it helps give them more leverage and more of a say. Even raising the issues like this, but to have it come from the students is super powerful. And and they're looking to try to organize the adjunct teachers, from what I understand. And I think that's like my hope is that that's one of the big actions that this leads to. Because that's kind of a movement across the U.S. right now, is adjunct teachers trying to organize. It's just awful, like when you look at the issues with adjunct teachers.
Yeah.
So it's just huge, fantastic work. I can't say enough good things about it. So if I go back then to my presentation, and I think that gives you an idea of how things can be how things can be shared via social media and how we can use social media to promote things. So just real quickly, before I switch to our campaign for Charmaine, I just wanted to put in a little plug to finish up the content section. So a lot of all of my articles and everything I write, like my one rule of thumb is that I never write anything that I don't believe in. And everything that I write comes from a values standpoint. And I've written 2 books about values. This is one of them. This is the one in the political world. I wrote another book under my actual name, David Benz. It's basically the same book, but it's for the software engineering community. It's about why Agile works, and it's about Agile software development. But it's all about the importance of Agile in, in the business world, and about values in the business world. So all of my articles, kind of at the base of them, there's certain values that I'm, that are the foundation of what I believe, and everything I write fits into those values. And if you're interested and want to know more, check out Akadjian.com, and or let me know at any of our meetings. So a shameless bit of self-promotion for me. Next, so I wanted to talk about now, what can we do? And this was the idea that Richard and we just came up with this week when Richard said, "Hey, we can't go out and do stuff right now. What could we do? Is there anything we could do to help out some of the folks in Hamilton County that we care about?" And I was like, well, as we talked about the presentation, I was like, well, yeah, why don't we do we already have great content that's produced for Charmaine. So let's see if we can run a campaign for her. So in my experience working with politicians, and they all come to me because as a writer, they all want to, they all want to do free advertising. They all want content produced for them. But it's tough because I have to think about my audience. And usually what they want to get out is their campaign literature. And I can't, if I published campaign literature, I would get killed. Like, people would just destroy me at Daily Kos, because it would be like, this is, you're advertising to us. We don't advertise. We don't like advertising. So all of the stuff on the left doesn't work as content. Things that do work are, again, good personal stories, people who know a lot about certain issues, passion, unique knowledge of subject matter, etc. Those things all tend to make for really good articles. Some examples, the folks who I've worked with who had great content. Michael Donnelly, who is now, last elections 2 years ago, he was elected to the Ohio Supreme Court for the first time. He was one of our new justices. And he has tremendous passion around ending a practice that he calls dark plea bargaining. And he knows a lot about trying to close the justice gap. So his article was fantastic because he presented very specific knowledge about these issues in our courts that we're facing. And he was like, here's how to solve them. And if you elect me, we can solve them. But the entire article is about the issues. It's not till the very end where there was just a little blurb that says, Michael Donnelly is running for Ohio Supreme Court Justice. Here's his website. And fantastic. Erica Newsom was a teacher with the West Virginia teacher strike. Great story. Robert Barr, as you know, also fantastic story as the first pulpit rabbi to run for Congress. Mark Godsey is another person in town who is a wonderful lawyer. He's behind the what's the name of the movement I'm trying to think of right now? It's the group that's trying to end capital punishment in Ohio. It'll come to me in a second. But he wrote a book, A Blind Injustice, about what he does is he goes in and uses DNA evidence to help get people off. And the whole point of the book is, like when you see this on TV, you think, oh, that should be that should be easy. If they have the DNA evidence, they should get off. Well, that's not what happens. What happens is the justice system fights like hell to keep these people incarcerated because they don't want to look bad. So it takes years to get people off. Great story. Ohio Innocence Project, Richard texted me. Derek Bauman had awesome stories as a police officer. And great take on justice from the standpoint of what a police officer should be. A liberal police officer. He's not somebody who believes in shooting people, and he is all about de-escalation and community involvement. Great article. And Bruce Bartlett was one of Reagan's advisors who let me interview him, and just very interesting because he's not a Republican anymore. He has come around over the years that he was like, that stuff we did, it didn't work. So very, very interesting, like all good stories that people want to hear. But so how does this relate to Charmaine? So Charmaine is also somebody who has not only a great story, but as someone who came up in the ranks in Hamilton County throughout the years, just has tremendous knowledge. And when I first heard her speak, that was what I was like right away, oh, this is a great story, because she was just talking about the issues with the jail from her perspective and how we could fix them. And she knew exactly what they were. She had the experience to back it up, and she had, done things to solve these, and could talk about how to extend those, if she were Hamilton County Sheriff. So working with her, we put together this article that we have for content marketing. So the hard part of it is already done. The hard part is producing the content. Okay. Sorry about that. So our idea was that, okay, yeah, thank you, Noemi, sorry. She had to drop. So our idea was that now that we have this content, let's try to see if we can reach 100,000 voters in Hamilton County and push this out to more folks using a social media campaign. And so right now, this is a GoFundMe that set up, and I'm going to pop this into the chat for folks so they have the link.
Pardon me, David.
Yeah. Yes, Richard.
Oh, good. I just wanted to say that this morning, in preparing for this, Antoinette and I donated another 100. So we're beginning to build a little momentum.
Awesome. I saw that. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we already have 300 of our $1,000 goal raised, which means we can reach 30,000 people in Hamilton County. So if we can get to that $1,000 mark, we can reach even more. I know it's a tough time to be doing fundraising during the everything that's going on recently. I know a lot of people are donating to other causes, helping out other things. But I think it's a worthwhile cause. We still have a little over a month that people can still vote. And, if we can help drive folks to the polls, this is I think it would be one of the most successful things we could do for change in Hamilton County. I believe if Charmaine wins the primary, she's going to win the election. And Jim Neal is a Trump supporter who there is no one I would like to see lose more. I think we have a tremendous opportunity here, and I think we can do it on a short notice if people can contribute. If you can't, if you're not able to, and I understand the financial issues at this point, you can still help us. You can share the story with folks on social media. You can do things like when you see people posting, you can like the posts. When we share, when we put this out in the group, you can like the link that we share. It helps drive engagement. It helps Facebook push the ad even farther. And all of that can be done for free. So any of that help is much appreciated as well. We do understand some of the financial constraints. during this time. But we thought we might as well shoot. Might as well shoot for something big. So I also wanted to, so Mary Carol, you're on from Charmaine's campaign. Are you out there?
I am out there.
Hey, Mary Carol.
Hello.
Yeah. So
Can
can you speak?
you see me?
I can. Yes. Can you speak a little bit to the value that stuff like this has to
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, you just got another 100.
Sweet.
So, all of this, and thank you, first of all, Richard and David, for coming up with this idea, and literally all the supporters who I know are either on this call or wanted to be on this call. What you all have been able to do as activists and supporters has enhanced and grown our campaign in ways that you can't even put a value on it. It's so important. This particular thing, and David, I'm so glad. First of all, I'm so grateful that you have done the article. I looked back and I can't believe that was in September of 2019. And just how you've clearly explained how valuable an approach this is, but the financial piece with it, it's very different. I mean, it's very difficult right now, in my mind, for a candidate to be out there personally soliciting donations because of the times we find ourselves in. I know some candidates are doing it pretty aggressively. Right now, we have made a strategic decision, and out of consideration of what is going on in the world, that in our community, that's not the strategy we have taken right now. It doesn't mean that there might in the future be some soft asks, but what you as organizers and activists have done is allowed through a very strategic project to raise money that is going to come back to help the campaign get our word out. Everything is going to be done either by mail, social media, digital marketing. There is no other way to do it right now. So
Right.
This idea just propels us into a higher visibility that frankly we could not do on our own. And as a group, to be able to get behind a fundraiser like this on behalf of Charmaine's campaign sends a very different message than if we were out there doing it ourselves. So it's so valuable to us, and the payoff will go way beyond the $1,000.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great to hear, Mary. Yeah, and in my experience, again, a lot of it comes down to that point that I was talking about, that people don't like advertising. So a lot of times if they see something coming from a candidate, or if they see something coming from a campaign, it just doesn't quite have the same impact as it can when it's coming from like a friend or like an article that's posted that they can learn something about.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's, I've been in the nonprofit world most of my career, and it always was a better ask when a board member or a volunteer asked for donations rather than a paid staff person. This is the exact same model. It's that your story and what I've been encouraging people to do, even when they share content from our page, it's not just about sharing our content, it's about adding the why you care about it. The why, why, David, did you decide to write this article? I just went on your website, the Little Book of Revolution, and I shared it because you had just reshared it. But the most important thing is, my voice is one thing. Charmaine's voice, obviously, is the important candidate and message that we all care about. But your voices are even more important.
Yes. This is Richard, and thank you for your leadership, Mary Carol. It has been so wonderful and loving and powerful and focused and smart. It's just been wonderful. But I wanted to share, David, that you're giving the first 100. I mean, we're fairly generous with different things, but you're giving the first 100
Yep.
motivated us. We would not have done that, I can tell you clearly, if you had not done that first when I saw the page, when you created that page. So I think that goes, and I love the photo that you chose for the GoFundMe page. If you could go back to that a moment, is it easy to go back? I thought that was such a touching, look at that photo there with Charmaine. And there is Jackie Brewer on the right there, wearing the little badge that Lucy Crane made with Charmaine's picture in there. And then Jerry Becker is behind or between the two there with his hand at his heart. And I thought this picture shows the range of emotion and the fullness of it. But I sent it to Jackie saying, I loved your she's an active member in Bold New Democracy. So I sent it to her and saying, you were so beautiful in this photo. And she then donated $100. So I think I give that as an example of person to person and modeling. And then I didn't ask her to send any money. I was wonderfully surprised that I saw her donation in there. And I think then the giving is not the hard sell. It's the heart sell or the friend sell. You don't even have to sell. You didn't ask me, David, to contribute. I didn't ask Jackie. We didn't ask you, Mary Carol. It just grows from modeling and stepping forward, and that becomes contagious.
Right. Yeah, and if you can tell people what you're trying to do, that with this very small amount of money, we can reach 100,000 voters. I mean, that's like, I loved, Richard, that you broke it down and you were like, so how much is that per voter? And it's a penny per voter. Like, it's just, the reach of this is incredible. It's just, yeah. So I'm going to be sharing that going forward, when I'm asking other folks to contribute, we can reach 100,000 people with this at a penny per voter. And we can, we think if she wins this, it will make a huge difference for Hamilton County.
David, I will say that in our campaign, we only say when she wins this.
Ah, there you go. There you go. I like that. I'm adopting that from now on, that Mary Carol.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, fantastic. So that's kind of the idea behind the campaign, and a little bit about content marketing and my background and where all of this crazy stuff comes from. At this point, I guess we're at Q&A. So hang on. If you have questions, and Matt, are you out? Oh, Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just say one other thing. We have done some of this already from our campaign page, and we are set up thanks to Christine Sandusky, who's really taken charge of our posting of our MailChimp letters, as well as working through the process of being authorized by Facebook to do these paid ad boosts. So we have been doing this, and as you say, it's with very little money, we've been able to reach more people. So I thank you for really bringing attention to a strategy. It makes me believe that it's a good use of our funds as well, that we can do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you guys have gotten some great media coverage. Not just the piece that I wrote, but there's been some other good coverage, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to, I did see a question from Susan out there. Susan, are you out there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you, Susan.
I noticed that the story you did on Charmaine was dated September last year. And my question is, would it be a good idea to update it and then resend it out through all of our different, and make it more current, I guess? So.
That's a great question, Susan. And so probably what I'll do with that one, because I like the idea of updating the date on the story. And the way I can do this is a lot of times I'll reshare my articles on my website. So probably, like one way I can do that is to just republish it with a more current date. I was actually thinking about one of the other reasons I was thinking about for doing this was, as Richard mentioned, like, he really loved that picture from the parade. I was thinking about trying to find another picture that could possibly be used for the update as well, from some of the things that we've done. Just because I know the one picture's been seen a lot already. So, Carol, maybe you can help us out with that but we can probably do an updated version this week that we could use for the reshare.
To that point too, just a thought, again, thinking about voices of activists, what if it could be a little addendum of 7, to reflect the whole issue of 7 questions, 7 reasons that justice reform advocates support Charmaine Duffy, and you get a brief interview or comment from 7 people from Bold New Democracy or something. It's just an idea.
Yeah, no, I could see doing that. And probably this week, what we'll be doing, or I want to have some further discussions. We can talk a little bit about exactly how to do this, and maybe it's several different ads that get run. So there's different ways we can try to do this. But I have a number of thoughts on how we could do that. But I like the idea. Yeah, it's always the thing that's most important is literally that sentence that you write when you share the article. It's that little lead about why you want somebody to read it.
Right.
I would definitely, like, the justice reform issue is huge for Charmaine, and that would be in my lead.
Yes. Yes. I think Charmaine has been trying to get in to be able to just say a couple of.
Okay.
You unmute.
Yeah. Let me see if I can promote Charmaine to our panelist. Charmaine, are you out there? Might be on mute. Let me unmute. Charmaine, are you there?
There we go.
There you are.
Yeah, great. Thank you all so much. And David, thank you. It's a wonderful presentation with ideas and I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We are happy to. Uh-oh, you might have cut out, Charmaine.
Oh, okay. Can you guys see me?
I can't see you. You might have to turn on your video.
Oh, okay. We don't have to see me.
We want to see you, Charmaine. Bottom left. You'll see your camera there, or an image of a camera. Click on that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's look for it.
While you're looking, I'd like to share a brief story that touched me about Charmaine, is that being in the parades, particularly in African-American communities like Evanston, and I think we went to, Lincoln Heights and Black Family Reunion. They kind of all blend. But in the Black family, and then talking to people along the path or around about why Charmaine is important, and so many of the people were parents, mothers and fathers, and their young children. And I asked, how concerned are you about your children within the justice system of Hamilton County and in your neighborhood, and that perhaps your children might not be treated fairly? They might be really caught in that web. And they all enthusiastically, or that's the wrong word, passionately said, oh yeah, that is one of their main concerns with their children. And I said, what if we had a sheriff who really felt the same way you did? Of course, we have to be law-abiding, but the care, the respect, the even reverence, if that's not too much, for your children would be a part of the leadership in the sheriff's department, and they just beamed. Oh yeah, that's something they would love to have. So that really touched me to speak with them.
Oh, great story, Richard. Yeah, and I know that I just know from my personal sharing experiences on different issues over the years, justice reform is a huge issue with especially the African American community in Cincinnati. There you are, Charmaine. I see you now.
Yeah, thank you. And I do appreciate it. I wrote down, David, your presentation was so interesting regarding the different stories that you could, you know, share and write. And so I wrote down some ideas that I had regarding like just corrections officers as well, and why they experience such burnout and how they are minimalized in the criminal justice system and the difficulties that they face as well, you know, working with the incarcerated. So I have, and then I have several other ideas here of things I can write about inside the system.
Awesome.
So,
Very cool. Yeah, you have such a wide breadth of expertise, you know, and people like to, it's something that always is very interesting to people outside in different worlds.
Yeah, you know, and I sat here and thought, oh, I'll write my story of my very first day in uniform when I walked into the old Cincinnati workhouse.
Yeah.
That's a story, I promise you.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. Cool. Well, I'm glad it stirred some thoughts. Matt, are you out there, Matt?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I know, so I haven't had a chance. It's been hard for me to monitor the questions. And were there any questions folks had in the chat? Anything that you saw that you could speak to?
Yeah, here's a question from Dan Lanzolata. For Charmaine, or an idea for new content. Is there a real-time response to how Sheriff Neal is handling the COVID-19 crisis with the jail or with other aspects of law enforcement?
Oh my God, great question.
Great.
Charmaine?
What I think Sheriff Neal should be doing, well, let me just say it this way. What I would do as the sheriff is I would be standing at those media briefings with Denise Driehaus and articulating, not just in the media, but also online, and sharing it as many ways as I can, what our protocols are for safety, a current update of the health in the jail, which we can do. How many people have the flu? How many people are experiencing, you know, other medical issues and what they are. There is so much information that we can impart to the public, and then talk about those protocols of, you know, what we will do out on the road should we encounter, you know, a domestic violence situation inside a household, you know, and how we're gonna take precautions there, because we're entering a house with potentially a lot of people. You know, so those are things that I think as the sheriff, he should be out front. And, you know, people communicating with their families down at the jail, I'm sure is an issue, because, you know, we do have phones, but the phones are very limited in the fact that we don't have enough phones. And in fact, when I was the major, I added phones because we actually had an incident where a prisoner was severely injured in an argument over the phone that, you know, just by the way, the officer did not handle well, and it escalated into a very serious, you know, use of force situation. But at any rate, the phone calls cost money. I mean, and the time that you spend on the phone is the amount of money that it costs you as well. So, you know, those are issues. We do not have video visitation, as many jails and prisons have gone to. We don't have that. So I would imagine that it's very, very difficult for the prisoners to communicate with anyone. And I think that increases their level of stress. exponentially.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so it sounds like there's some things that it's a great contrast. It's a great contrast between what's going on now and what we should be doing.
And it's one of the things that the public continues to complain about is that, the Sheriff's Department in general tends to hoard information. The professionals that work with the Sheriff's Office complain about it. Not just the public, but the public defenders and people that are, invested in what's going on with those people inside the jail. They don't get their questions answered. And the sheriff has all of this information. I guarantee you he does. But it's amazing to me, particularly even when I talk to reporters who tell me, well, we can't even get them to tell us how many people they actually have on a daily basis inside the jail. And I think to myself, why wouldn't we communicate that? So it is clearly a frustration that the public has with the Sheriff's Office. And I do not see Jim Neal nor his staff addressing that issue because they're terrified. And I mean, I just say that from a perspective, I witnessed it. They are terrified that they may make a misstep, or something may get misrepresented, or they can't explain something. And so therefore their action is not to be proactive and educate themselves and do the right things. It's to say, okay, well, we'll just put up this brick wall and then, and then we don't have to worry about it. And that is historically how that department has been run.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's just terrible to hear. So Matt, any other questions from folks that you've seen? I've been trying to answer a few in the background as well.
Dan Schatzer is asking, what's the process on Facebook for doing this? Like, you practically would go through that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something we want to walk through, or we can deal with that later because we.
Yeah, it's that's something we should talk about. To try to cover it now is just too. It's just too much. The simple answer is that for normal ads, it's pretty easy. You just have to have a group, and Facebook wants your money, and they're happy to take promotions for things. The issue recently, however, though, that we've had with with propaganda from other countries, etc., Facebook has really clamped down on political ads. So for ads that are political, you have to go through a process to get approved to do political ads. Mary Carroll mentioned this. They've done it for Charmaine's campaign. I did it for my group campaign. I actually just had to redo it because they changed the process and they made it even more difficult, where they want more forms of ID, and you have to show that you're a valid group, et cetera, et cetera. We can talk about that more online, or I can post some links to our Bold New Democracy page. It's just tough to go through in detail right now.
Yeah, we'll get together.
Yeah, but hopefully that helps. And anything else, Matt? I know we're coming up on time. Yes.
I would just say that I think Christine might have already sent this to either you and or Richard, but we had been working with a digital marketing firm to do some of our digital marketing during the campaign. And the process did become pretty complicated on Facebook. They sent us a video tutorial that Chris used.
That's awesome.
And I know she has sent that to somebody, and if it wasn't Richard,
I have it.
Okay, good. So that may be helpful to whoever wants to try to set this up.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, and Matt, maybe you can post that to our Bold New Democracy page.
Okay.
Cool. That's awesome. Anything else? I know we're coming up on time. maybe we should close out at this point.
We have not.
I'm sorry, Matt, I couldn't hear you.
There aren't any more questions in the queue.
Oh, okay. Okay, good deal.
This is Richard.
Yep, I was going to say I will turn it over to you, Richard, to finish up any last questions or close us out.
Yeah, good. One question I was curious about is the targeting. How would you, just as a reach out to person yourself, David, what would you, at least, not as a final decision, but what parts of Greater Cincinnati how would you frame that target?
Oh, well, I would frame it as Hamilton County because that's the election. But what I would specifically, to narrow it down, if liberals turn out, she will win. So I would target the liberals. I would target the people interested in justice reform, and get the liberal folks to turn out. I don't want Jim Neal's supporters turning out.
Right.
Yeah, good.
Right.
Thank you. In conclusion, David, thank you so much. It was such great learning, and it turns into action, which of course is my bias as an organizer. Brilliantly. I think it's brilliant what you've shared here, and I loved you connecting in with Naomi to have a young college student a part of this as an example was so powerful, and to support her work. And she, is also a Bold New Democracy member, which is an organizer I'm proud of, that she's been here for almost 2 years now, or a year and a half, I guess, when she's only a sophomore. I mean, she's amazing. So that was brilliant in how to connect this in with Charmaine. My encouragement is follow your heart in deciding whether to contribute to this campaign. If it feels like it is your heart, just ask your heart. And if it says, yeah, this feels like it has heart in it and I can connect my heart to it, please do that. I'd like to follow up with Instagram. Noemi gave us that clue, because how to do this with Instagram. Our Antoinette's and my grandson is 18. He never touches Facebook, but he uses Instagram all the time. And he reported from Clark High School that I went with him to take him to early voting, which was an honor. And he was real excited, but he said the other seniors at Clark, they're not voting. They don't care. And that broke my heart in many ways. But we can reach out to them, again, with that total number that we can. And I think Instagram is the way to do that. If you'd like to be involved, I think most people on here might be with Bold New Democracy, but perhaps not all, that to send me, if you'd like to receive invitations to our events and trainings and to be involved, please go to certainly to the Facebook page or to the website, or send me an email to Richard Asimus, ASIMUS, @outlook.com. And I'd be glad to include you in that. If anyone needs coaching about doing that, this is another action we can take, is to support others. I haven't asked you formally, David, if you would be willing to do that, but I know Matt and others within our teams are glad to coach people in how to get involved in that. And maybe Chris could do this as well, since she's a person doing this. And my last point is, next Saturday, I'm committed that we need to maximize our work during this time. And the next Saturday, 10 to 11:30, there'll be a training on how to go through the process for those that have not voted. 70% of Hamilton County has not yet voted in the primary. 70% have not voted. And so the application to vote by mail is the one step you have to go through, and a little complicated. Then you get your ballot back, then there's that process as well. So next Saturday, 10 to 11:30, we'll have a training with action flowing from that about this. It has to be in by the 27th. They say the 28th is the last day, but it actually has to be in there, postmarked by the 27th. And today, of course, is the 28th. So this is really urgent. And connecting it to favorite candidates is an important part too. Mia Lewis from Columbus, who's a real activist, with the Common Cause will be with us also next week, and perhaps others, to give us the guidance to make this happen, to motivate voters, citizens to vote. That's my way of framing it. Motivate citizens who will then want to vote and go through the rather complicated process, which the legislature made more complicated rather than less. So that's been a frustration, but we have to take what's given and solve that to help people follow through in our democracy and actually vote. So those are my closing points. And thank you all for coming. Thank you, Mary Carol. Thank you for Charmaine for stepping up to be a real leader for justice and change and actually goodness and love within the justice system. Because I know we all experience it with you, is that it's justice, but it's also the humanness and the love that you bring to your work, but also to all the people in our county too. So thank you all so much.
Yes. And thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Okay,
All right.
awesome. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.